know, but the point is that when you're as ignorant and as lacking in curiosity, and when you have as weak a work ethic as he does, it means that if you want to act fast, all of your problems are multiplied. And I don't think it's mysterious that these things haven't worked out. Look how long it took Obama to get Obamacare. I mean, it took forever. And Trump is going to do it like this. I mean, or to compare him with Johnson, who knew all the details of the legislation. Trump doesn't know anything. And he's not curious, so he's not going to learn.
Can I throw something out there for you to sort of pick apart? But to me, it seems also like if you take this testing yourself or proving yourself as a good president within the 100 days, and you take that into the security and defense sector of the military sector, it can have devastating consequences. It can have the consequences of you dropping the mother-of-all bombs in Afghanistan, or bombing Syria, or creating, or sending an armada, if you are sending an armada or not, but to North Korea. So it seems to be some sort of major militarization thing going on that to me appears to be catastrophic already.
Maybe Adam wants to say something.
Yeah.
I don't sleep at night.
Neither.
I mean, I think it's scary. Well, North Korea, why would you want to? I can't think of a worse idea in the universe than going to war with North Korea and to have Trump lead it. I agree with everything you say. He's not curious, he has a weak work ethic, he doesn't understand the issues. And we want him to prosecute any of these wars? I mean, I think it's a recipe for disaster for all of us. So let's just hope he is a caretaker and he does jack shit and he doesn't pass any legislation. It just concerns me that, like, after the 59 Tomahawks, that you didn't have very many Democrats criticizing him publicly. You know, you had like Maxine Waters, and I guess tepidly Bernie, but you have people doing the whole rally around the flag, fall in line, and that's the part that scares me. Because even if, you know, I see the pictures of those Syrian children and I get really pissed off, but I don't want Trump to solve that problem, you know, so it's like, because he can't, you know, huh?
I don't want bombs to solve that problem.
Right. I mean, these are problems there are not easy solutions, because the smartest people in the world have tried to solve them, right? And they can't. Trump is not the smartest person in the world. He should not be doing it.
Ben's got a comment here.
Well, I think in military and security policy, I think Trump does have a serious staff. People who do know what they're doing. His national security advisor and his defense person, that they're both generals, and one of them actually is a PhD in military history. So they do know what they're doing. So whether Trump is, I'm sure Trump is just as ignorant in military policy as he is in other things, but in this situation he does have a good staff, and he also has the Defense Department, you know, which the other departments haven't been staffed, but the Defense Department, I think, is already staffed by, by military people. On the question of policy, going back to Bush 1, to Clinton, to Bush 2, to Obama, nobody has done anything about North Korea. They've been trying to negotiate, and little by little North Korea has nuclear weapons, and now it's going to have an ICBM, and eventually it's already blackmailing South Korea with artillery pieces 30 miles away with Seoul. What are you going to do? Just wait until it has a hydrogen bomb on ICBMs, and then what do you do? What Trump or his advisors are trying to do is at least see if some kind of threat of force works. It hasn't been tried. Everything else has been tried. This hasn't been tried. Of course, there's always the danger. The interesting thing about this is China is the great peacemaker here. I love this. You know, the great negotiator. That's fantastic. Of course, you know, China is playing a double game. China wants North Korea to do what it's doing precisely because it's really bugging us, and that's what China wants. At the same time, China does not want a war with us because there's a war with us with North Korea. China cannot do anything, and then the alliance with North Korea will come apart. And, sorry.
Just a follow-up to that, maybe that I don't know if I agree with the fact that you being a general makes you know or be good on what it is that you're doing?
Military policy, yes.
Military, well, just perhaps means that you're more prone to see military solutions to problems that not
Some problems have military solutions, other problems don't, yes.
I think the problem, what frightens me, yes, everybody says he has very competent military advisors, but I'm not sure that there's a good link or good flow of communication with Trump and the advisors, and to what extent Trump pays attention to his advisors. So if he doesn't, I assume that the military leaders knew where the Armada was, and the fact that Trump didn't know where it was, and there was some lack of communication there. I mean, right? And that's what I find troubling. So I have a question, kind of related to yours in terms of how American politics has changed, or the effect of Trump on politics. So one reason maybe that he's not succeeding as much as he could be is because there is a lot of public opposition. So I'd like you guys to comment about whether now more people are interested in politics, because we've seen a lot of protesters at congressional town hall meetings. Maybe is an indication of more interested public, and maybe some of his legislative proposals aren't doing as well in Congress because the public is speaking up and showing up and influencing Congress in that way. And so, you could say that Trump's campaign brought in new people to politics, and now his victory has brought in more new people to politics. So in that sense, it might be, I guess a positive to have, a lot more Americans interested and participating in politics. Hopefully we'll have more political science majors. I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
I've heard a lot of people more interested in media, and talking about wanting to be in media and be a journalist. Usually as a former journalist, I ask them if they like to make an income. But I've heard a lot, I just have heard a lot of questions about, what is the role of the media and all this, and how can we, we want to be active, we want to be activated, and how can we find accurate information anymore?
I would say that, and this will be familiar with many people in the audience, but I did agree with Ruth that early in a term, presidents are more likely to be successful, and one of the reasons for that is I think related to Charles's question, is that usually presidents are more popular early in their term, and then their popularity declines as they go throughout the term. In this case, it is unusual that we have a president who's beginning the term below water, below the 50% mark. It's quite possible it won't decline a lot more, just because there's,
His core level, his core
yeah,
supporters are
that you've gone
35%.
almost as, how much lower can you go unless something disastrous happens, in which case I think it could. So I think definitely it's emboldened Democrats to be more resistant to him than they would have otherwise, having all these people show up at town meetings and having people writing them and pressuring Democratic legislators to not go easy on him, vote against every nominee for the cabinet and this and that. To oppose Gorsuch, even though they knew it would lead to the nuclear option. I think that they hadn't decided on that strategy until the public, especially on the Democratic side and the activists, kind of made their preference clear on that. So I think it is affecting the strategies, certainly of the Democratic caucus.
I'm not sure that that activating portions of the population who have been quiescent is necessarily positive. A lot of times you want to let sleeping dogs lie. A lot of people are, a lot of the people who had not been active might be more likely to be authoritarian types, and I would just assume that they sit it out, and I would just assume that we not activate them. I wouldn't say you can't talk, you can't organize, you can't vote, you know, everybody can do that, but I'm not going to single out those people in the hope that they participate more, because I think that they might have a toxic effect. And I think we're seeing some of that with Trump, where some of his supporters are openly bigoted in a way that was considered unfashionable for years. So just enlarging the active electorate doesn't necessarily strike me as a good idea. One of the interesting things that's occurred to me, and I think it ties in with something that David said and maybe something that Ruth said, is suppose you try to imagine a counterfactual. We all remember Trump's inaugural address, where he basically told everybody who didn't vote for him to go to hell. Suppose he had reached out to the Democrats. Suppose he had picked out a couple of divisive issues like immigration and said, I'm going to put these off to the side. I'm going to reach out to the Democrats. And if he would reach out to the Democrats, then the Freedom Caucus presumably wouldn't have the leverage that they subsequently had. Suppose he had done that. You know, it's possible, if you think of that scenario, that the Democrats might have forgiven a lot of his vulgarity because they would have been able to make common ground on certain things. But of course we know he didn't do it, and those were the days when Dan and his guys were riding high, and they pushed him just to look only at the core, I guess asking, well, why did you run for president? You didn't run for president so you could compromise. But on the other hand, had he reached out, I wonder if we would be in a situation where we are today, where
I think David's first figure suggests that it doesn't matter what he would have done. The partisanship in Congress is such that there's no way. I don't know if it's Democrats acting out against Trump, but also acting against McConnell, and how the toxicity within the institution.
There's no question that things were in terrible shape, but the first thing he did was to throw gasoline on the fire, right? And you have to wonder if he had made really kind of concrete, tangible proposals, not just can't we all be together, but kind of tangible proposals that could have gotten a substantial number of Democratic supporters if he would have been able to turn his image around. Of course, we'll never know.
If he would have nominated Merrick Garland, that certainly would. Yeah.
All he did was just double down on this, and the results have not worked out.
I would say, though, that in terms of Obamacare, and repealing that's definitely where the progressive vote counted, and they got the Republicans nervous about 2018. So that was very effective. I don't think they're going to have the same effectiveness in terms of tax policy, but that was very effective. The one area it wasn't effective, though, was with the privacy rules, because he did, in a stealth maneuver, that's probably the most successful thing he was able to do, was to reverse the privacy regulations.
Well, the environment.
The environment, too.
I think
And I think we're just beginning.
he has Pruitt in the EPA, and he's a very tough, aggressive, smart guy, and he's going to have a big impact.
So can I ask Sarah, what does the variance in the number of executive orders mean? Or maybe another way to ask the question, what is it? Is using an executive order, what does that mean? Is it an indication of weakness, strength, or doesn't it mean anything?
I think it depends. I think you could look at it as an indication of weakness only in the sense of not being able to get your legislative agenda passed at Congress, but you can also argue it's a show of strength that you're willing to just assert your executive power. The problem is that the next guy can just, or woman can just come in and with a stroke of a pen get rid of it, whereas legislation is obviously a little bit harder to change. But it, you know, like many things in politics and political science, it's really, you could make the argument.
Do you know, are most of the executive orders given earlier on in presidential terms, and so that as presidents have opportunities to then negotiate with Congress, and then maybe the more successful ones, you would see then fewer executive orders later on in their terms, and the ones who are unable to then, right, have any legislative success in Congress, then they would continue to rely on executive.
Yeah, I think that's harder to break down than looking at pieces of legislation passed, because you can categorize something as an executive order, as a proclamation, as a memorandum, and it will be tracked differently, but there's almost no meaningful difference in practicality, so I think it's very hard to break down, you know, what is happening when, and you know, which thing is the most important, you know, what's, you know, they're just very hard to track, because because they're not explicitly laid out, I think, because they're this assertion of executive power, created based on precedent, and created based on just, you know, how each president shapes the office himself. You know, it's a more ambiguous thing to track. So I'm personally not aware of any clear-cut data on that, but there could be some.
Any other questions?
Why does 100 days feel like 10,000?
Who's played the most golf in the first 100 days?
Why does it not matter when he clearly contradicts himself? Like the criticisms of Obama, of using the executive orders, of playing golf. Why does nobody hold him accountable for very clear contradictory positions? That's
Just expect it and become normalized.
We're just
Well,
all deaf with it.
I was in a class once and somebody asked this is when I was a student many years, someone asked the instructor, did he agree with Mao's theory of contradictions? And he said, yes and no.
What do we think is going to happen with the Russia stuff? Is there a lot of smoke and no fire? It's just so hard to analyze with so many conspiratorial, hyperbolic tweets about it or whatever. But certain actors have been acting very peculiarly. Like Chaffetz, his behavior in the past 2 weeks is just very
I
bizarre
heard
to me.
firsthand from Schumer's wife that, you know, it's pretty far away, but that there's a lot, it's way worse than we know.
It's good gossip though.
Yeah. What can I say? I'll pass it on.
But like, look, as a political
No,
scientist,
yeah.
I want to approach this, you know, yeah, I want Trump to go down. But as a political scientist, you know, there's a lot of bizarre behavior. I mean, we just kind of got to wait and see, but does it seem like, looking into our crystal balls, is there a lot of smoke and no fire, is there actually something there?
I think there's a more fundamental question, which is, will we be able to learn whether there is smoke or fire? And when you have Republicans running the relevant committees, and they have a very strong interest in stopping things from imploding, you know, I think we have to be realistic. We may never know.
I mean, someday it'll come out, right? I mean, even if
Well,
Trump is
I
out of
mean,
office by then.
Well, I don't know, it may come out someday, but if it comes out someday, it'll only be an interest to graduate students. It won't have any practical impact, so I don't know. I don't know. It seems to me that really is the question, and when you look at, the Senate committee hasn't done anything. I mean, they literally haven't done anything, nothing at all. And the House committee has not done much more than the Senate.
But have you been like observing like Chaffetz, like how he's done this about face, like the sudden announcement of the resignation, criticizing Flynn 2 days ago?
I thought the resignation, this is such an ambitious guy, the resignation to me just suggested, and I have no evidence at all, it suggested that there's some huge scandal and that he wants to avoid. He didn't leave this dream job. They're now in the majority, he's head of a committee. He didn't leave this dream job to spend more time with his family. You know, I mean, that's nuts. So I don't know, I'm just speculating. I would guess that there's some big scandal. I can't think of any other explanation. Why would he do it?
I mean, in a way, I'm asking you to speculate, you know, because you guys have studied politics longer than I have, so. It seems bizarre to me, but how
The
bizarre?
scandal was the first thing that I thought of, but then he almost immediately pretty much said he was gonna be running for governor right after that, which is probably more likely. And then when you think about it, he is the head of a powerful committee, but that oversight committee is only useful if you enjoy attacking Democrats, and Democrats are in office. But if you enjoy attacking Democrats in the executive branch and there's no Democrats there, then all you're gonna have to do is be attacking Republicans, and how does that help you in your future career?
Well, why is he in such a hurry to leave?
That
He's
is
talking
the
about
weird thing, yes.
Not
It
even
doesn't-
waiting until the
Right.
term is over. His bags are packed, you know.
Maybe he was offered a lucrative job that he's gonna cash up his personal finances before he
I
runs
don't
for
know.
another office.
Maybe,
I don't know.
maybe.
Did he say he was resigning or just not running?
He's gonna resign.
He didn't get a date, but soon.
Yeah, soon. That could be any time.
My guess with the Russia thing is that it's just gonna be so hard to, you know, what is the smoking gun? Like they always say, it's always the cover-up, it's never, the crime is very difficult to, do you imagine that like there's a personal check from Putin to Donald Trump or something? There's not gonna be anything like that. It's just not, they use all these shell corporations, they have plausible deniability, oh, I just, you know, decided to sell one of these condos to this Russian oligarch for $1, or, you know, whatever. So I wouldn't pin my hopes on him getting impeached from that.
Oh, right.
It would probably be just doing something stupid to block the investigation that would be more dangerous to him politically.
Well, presumably the Justice Department is supposed to investigate, but already you have the Attorney General recusing himself because he's involved. You have a new AAG today, it was confirmed today or yesterday? I just don't see that as practical.
Well, that's an upbeat
Thank you.
note to end it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all for
Thank you.
coming.
Thank you.
Yeah.
For preparing remarks.
Thank you.
Mine is not.